Good morning. Today we are going to discuss Module 3.1, ICT and Society. There are three parts to this section. It's called Network Usage Policies, ICT's Contribution to Humanity, and Capabilities and Limitations of ICT. The first one, Network Usage Policies, we already discussed in Module 2.1. ICT's Contribution to Humanity. Computers do more than add value to our personal and business lives. They are often used for tasks that affect and benefit the lives of all citizens of our country, or even all of humanity. Then, capabilities and limitations of ICT. We need to take some time out from looking at the technical aspects of the ICT hardware and software and think of what the capabilities and limitations of ICT are. Okay, managing network use. So what is network management? Well, we can simplify it into two main categories. The first category is policies, restrictions, and firewalls. The next part is end user documents. Let us take a look at policies, restrictions, and firewalls. The network manager uses the hardware and software of the network to set up policies, restrictions, and firewalls. These are all ways for the network manager to manage and restrict what users can use the network for. Let us begin by learning what each term means. Policies. Now this can be a bit confusing because a policy could be a term used for organizational decisions and documents that explain what is acceptable and what is not. These settings can be used to control almost every aspect of what the user can and cannot do with a network. These range from setting the minimum length required for a password to restricting access to certain folders. The next word, restrictions. Basically, restrictions refer to limiting user activity and controlling access by changing settings in the software and hardware. Restrictions can be applied to individuals or groups of users. So, for example, your company or your school may prevent you from going on any social media during school times, so they could block those sites. Then we have firewalls. Firewalls monitor and control communication between a network or computer and a wider network such as the Internet. It is hardware, software, or a combination of both that monitors incoming and outgoing traffic on a network. Please make sure that you do not say that firewalls give you access to the Internet. Okay? All it does, it monitors which sites are being accessed and which sites are trying to access your network or your PC. It decides whether to stop the traffic based on a set of predetermined security rules. So, for example, the school could set a policy in the firewall to prevent you going on any social media or anything containing the word blog. So that means that you won't be able to go on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of those accounts. Its purpose is to create a barrier between an internal network and incoming traffic from external sources to block potentially malicious traffic. To use these techniques, IT and network managers need in-depth, detailed knowledge of how the software and hardware work. Some policy settings in the network operating system can contradict each other and cause conflicts that can have unpredictable consequences. So it's very important that your network administrator understands exactly how the network works and what is allowed and what is not allowed. Okay. The second part we said was the AUP. AUP stands for Acceptable Use Policy. So these are documents that for the end user of what they are allowed to do and not allowed to do. While certain basic technical controls may be put in place, it is also important to tell users what the acceptable use of the network is and setting out what the consequences for unacceptable use are. Most organizations, including schools, use an AUP to outline the rights and responsibilities for its users, especially in a network environment. We are now going to look at aspects that should be included in your AUP. The first one is the Code of Conduct. Okay, so Code of Conduct, educating users and governing their behavior when using the network and the internet with regard to ethical, legal, and safe use, the privacy of others. That means you are not going to go onto someone else's folder and look through their work. Forms of online communication. So at the moment we are allowing communication through Google Classroom. Restrictions on the amount and type of data and information downloaded from the internet. So this basically means that it would not be right to download movies or music from the school network. Restricted access to sites from objectionable and offensive material is defined by the laws of the country. So very important here is above the school's policy and rules are the laws of the country. So if you think that it is okay to hack into someone else's computer, then you will discover that the law will not be on your side and you could face criminal charges. Other things that should be included in your AUP: when and where portable storage devices may be used. Now you've heard me speak and say to you repeatedly, please ensure that you scan your flash drives before you plug them in to ensure that you are not bringing viruses from home. There can be restrictions about installing any hardware software. So at our school, what we use is a system called Deep Freeze. This will prevent you from downloading and installing your own software onto the computers. And how it works is that when we shut down the PCs, it wipes anything that was installed on the computer, and when I switch it back on, it is going to load a fresh image that I have preloaded. The procedures to follow in cases of identity theft, malware such as a virus, cyberbullying or cyber stalking. Okay, so what must I do if someone is trying to hack my system, or someone is busy stealing my personal information? This you can find in the AUP. Also, how to avoid plagiarism and breaking copyright law. Clear consequences of violating conditions spelled out in the AUP. Okay, the next part we're going to look at is usage monitoring. Now this means network managers need to spend time and money to get software tools to help them to monitor what the users do on the network. So what they will do is they will look at what websites you are accessing, do you have access to all the folders or only certain folders, and what you are doing on them. When a violation of the AUP is detected, clear and visible action must be taken, otherwise the AUP will be seen as ineffective. So if you are caught going surfing the web instead of doing your lesson as your teacher has told you, then you could get into trouble, and this could mean that you might lose your computer privileges. Okay. So, where does ICT make the biggest difference? It is difficult to think of any area of human endeavor that could not benefit from the use of ICT because of its amazing applications. Let's see how ICT is making a difference in some global trends that affect humanity as a whole. Okay, worldwide communication. Okay, so without computers, there would be no cell phones, landline telephones, satellite TV, internet, email, instant messaging, social networking, and so forth. So when I was at school, we didn't have any of these things. I got my first cell phone when I was 21. So that is quite crazy to think that I only started using a cell phone once I had left school. If I had a project and I needed to do something or research, I would go to the local library and I would photocopy and I would write out my notes and create a poster. So the shrinking globe. Improved communication means that the world is becoming smaller. A few centuries ago, very few people knew much more about the world than what they experienced and knew about the immediate vicinity of the region in which they were born. So you basically only knew information about your direct community. Now, you can find out information about anything, anywhere in the world. You can speak to friends overseas. Literally, the world is becoming smaller. The chance to respond and influence. The speed of modern communication gives us the chance to act and be involved as we have never had the opportunity to do so before. In the past, it took 2 months for news of a natural disaster to travel around the world, and all we had to do was shake our heads and say, "How terrible." Now, when I was at school and my parents had gone overseas, and they would post me a letter, 6 weeks later, I would receive the letter. They were back by that time. Now news is almost instantaneous, and so are our responses to it. We can send help in material and physical forms or in the form of resources, money and aid. We can discuss and evaluate news. Now just think of this whole situation with the coronavirus. If we didn't have worldwide communication, we would not have known that the different countries are being affected by this. So it is now very easy for us to be able to access information from the other countries, see how they are coping in a lockdown situation, and then see what will work for us here in South Africa. Okay, government efficiency improvements. Okay, one of the biggest areas that affect our lives and the lives of others is the nature and efficiency of the government of a country. ICT can improve the world we live in, which is often controlled by the government, by improving the effectiveness and efficiency of the government of a country. So the first one we're going to look at is better communication. The government makes policies, laws, decisions, and rulings that affect our lives. They also tell us what we may and may not do, therefore what is legal and what is illegal. So at this point in time where we are now, we are in lockdown. So the government, the president, has asked us all to stay at home. At first, this may have seemed great extended holiday, but now we're starting to see the effect of struggling to go to the shops. We can't go to school, but this is all there so that we can try and combat this virus. These laws and decisions are not static. They change and have to be communicated to us. So each day or on a weekly basis, the president addresses the nation and then speaks to us and tells us what is going on. Websites make it possible for the government to make more information available to more people with greater ease than before. Government communication should also extend to educating people and increasing their awareness of life-threatening situations, like the coronavirus. Then, more efficient administration. Okay, so instead of going to stand in long queues, you can now download a lot of forms off the internet, like renewing your driver's license, getting travel documents, applying for old age pension. So all of these things, the e-government has become more efficient in its administration. Okay, I'm going to end off here. We will continue in part 2.